State governors are undergoing criticism over how they managed a record 9 trillion naira windfall from the Federation Account Allocation Committee, FAC, in 2025. A surge in revenue that many Nigerians expected would translate into better public services and infrastructure. Data shows that FAC allocations to states jumped by over 2 trillion naira in a single year, lifting total inflows to nearly 9 trillion naira, and experts say that this should have significantly eased pressure on state budgets. But instead of visible improvements in education, healthcare, roads, and other essential services, many citizens, labor unions, civil society organizations, and opposition parties are questioning why so little has changed on the ground.
Critics argue that weak governance, misplaced priorities, and persistent corruption at the subnational level have diluted the impact of this historic revenue increase, prompting calls for greater accountability, transparency, and better expenditure outcome. To help us explore more on this, we do have a former Chief Press Secretary of Osun State, Ismail Omikwida, joining us this morning. Thank you for being here.
The pleasure is mine. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I mean, it's good to know that you're one who has actually worked very closely, especially in government, and you've seen how governors or local government chairmen, name them, how when it comes to funds and managing the funds plays out. Can you share with us, really, as we start this conversation, with a 2 trillion naira increase in states' revenue this year alone, where can citizens find a line-by-line breakdown of how this windfall has been spent, if there's any? And do you think that the governors are actually doing the right thing in using this money to benefit the citizens?
Well, we will not be fair if we pack all the governors together as not doing enough to better the lives of citizens. I am aware that out of the 36 states, a few of them are making efforts to show for the humongous allocation they collect from the Federation account every month. The challenge we have, for me, is with the citizens. They have not been advocating well enough for the governors to show accountability. As an individual, I started what I will refer to a one-man advocacy campaign as far back as 2024. What led to that advocacy was that when I checked what the states, the federal allocation, what the states and the federal government shared in between April and May 2023, was never beyond 780 billion. But by June of the same year, it has jumped to 1.1 trillion. And I began to ask, what are the states doing with this money? I recall, if you remember, there was a time the states were asked to buy buses, mass transit buses, to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. I'm sure if you take a census today, out of the 36 states, hardly will you get 5 out of the 36 that have functional buses plying their streets with the hope of, helping the citizens. Even here in Federal Capital Territory, where I speak from, how many of the buses are on the roads? Yes, there are bus terminals here and there. Like I was joking with someone 2 weeks ago. I said there are bus terminals everywhere. But where are the buses? So the truth is, until citizens reduce their focus on federal government, and we all take our time to begin to challenge our state governors, this thing will not change. Agriculture, for instance, I am one of those who believe very strongly that the federal government has no business in agriculture. At best, they can help with regards to policy. But in all the states, as we speak today, maybe I saw Niger State trying to do a few things with regards to agriculture. Apart from Niger, and apart from Kebbi and Lagos that went into collaboration, to grow, to farm rice, I am not sure there are more than 5 states in this country that have invested heavily on agriculture. So I would challenge citizens to take more time to take their governors and their local government chairmen to task. We should stop, not necessarily stop being satellite on federal government, but we should concentrate more energy on the state, because it is only through the states that we can see the effects and benefits of this subsidy removal.
Now, you did talk about agriculture. Well, let's look at other issues like key social indicators, school enrollment, completion rates, primary healthcare access, mortality rates are still low. If you look at the country average, because you said it won't be nice to just lump all of them, but I mean, we are dealing with the law of averages here. We still have a monumental amount of students, of children that are out of school, and it seems to be growing year on year. But if you look at the line items of budgets that have been passed by a lot of states this year for 2026, you see that lip service is only paid to sectors like education and health, whereas a lot of the chunk of the budget goes into projects like buying cars and subsidizing the lifestyle of these public officials. Where did we get it wrong, and how can we change that? Because it seems to be a culture. Because if you fast forward to 2027 budgets, you would almost see the same thing playing out. It's as if the citizens are not a priority when it comes to governance in Nigeria.
Well, we got it wrong from our leadership recruitment process. In this country, only very few of us try to interrogate the credentials of those aspiring to lead us. I am aware that a few states have made tremendous efforts with regards to primary health care and education. Whereas there are some states who only pay lip service to these sectors. I know of a state, for instance, when the governor came in, the first thing he did, he claimed that the process of recruiting some health workers and teachers were not proper. And so the next thing he did was to fire 1,500 teachers that were employed by its predecessor. He also fired about 250 health workers that were recruited by its predecessor. Now, 3 years down the line, this same governor has not recruited one single teacher, even though they advertised for recruitment and even collected 3,000 naira each from hundreds of thousands of applicants. And as we speak, not a single teacher has been employed. In this particular state I'm talking about, up to this moment, not a single classroom has been built. And the man presiding over the affairs of this state, at the last count, had traveled abroad either for weddings or in the name of going to seek investors about 10 times. Now, in all of these journeys, there's nothing that you can pin down as being the positive effects of either the investment drive that he claimed to have embarked upon or otherwise. But most often, the citizens in all these states look away. Focus is usually on federal government. And so until citizens take on the gauntlet to ensure that their various state governors are accountable, we may never make headway. Look at Enugu State, for instance. I had cause to visit Enugu State twice in the last 2 years or so. I am impressed by the leadership that that governor is providing. I'm aware that that state has embarked on construction of smart schools, and we have seen some of them materialize. You see, when you see a man that means business, you look at his actions and inactions. When the governor of Anambra State last week decided that he was going to put an end to this usual Monday sit-at-home, I told one of my colleagues that he's probably taking a cue from the Enugu State governor. Well, Enugu State governor was the first governor in that zone who insisted that the sit-at-home on Monday must stop. And that is leadership. Leadership is about courage. Courage is leadership. So until Nigerians decide to focus more on what happens in their various states, we may never make any headway. Because so long as we continue to concentrate our attention on the federal government, we allow the state governors to continue to do as they like. If you go and look at the budgets, if you look at what they budget for entertainment, you look at what they budget for traveling, in most of the states, what they spend on recurrent expenditure and other frivolities are usually more than what they are supposed to spend on capital projects, on projects that will have direct impact on the citizen. What some of them are also doing smartly these days is to embark on road construction. I agree that we need infrastructure development, but then we must set our priorities right. For instance, what will a state where maybe the percentage of traffic within the metropolis is nothing compared to Lagos, Port Harcourt, and maybe Kano, be doing with 5 flyovers at the same time? Whereas there are rural roads that can be either reconstructed, so as to enable farmers to bring their produce closer to the people. So we must engage them to ensure that they get their priorities right.
So what ways, I mean, you've spoken so highly about your pleasant surprise in Enugu State and how you're very impressed by the leadership of Peter Mbah. You've also talked about how the Anambra State governor is taking leadership, personal with ending the sit-at-home order. And now you've also said that citizens should hold their governors to account. These same governors that are running to, the center waiting for federal allocations, that until citizens hold their governors to account. What practical ways can citizens hold governors to account? Beyond looking out for the developments and checking if the roads have been done.
Or waiting for electoral cycles.
Exactly, waiting for elections to either kick them out or replace them. What practical ways can citizens hold governors to account?
For instance, at the start of every election cycle, they make promises. Some will call it 5-point agenda, some will call it 7-point agenda. Whatever promises they make, itemize them one after the other. Thankfully, in this era of digital media, with just one or two punches, you get some of these things. Now, in the first year, what did Governor A promise to do? We now look at the budget. Within the budget, has there been provision to tally with the promises made by Governor A? The moment we discover any gap, we must begin to advocate. We must begin to shout. And these days, the traditional media, knowing fully that there are citizen journalists, they can no longer keep bad story or what we refer to as bad news too long from the members of the public. Experience have also shown that some of these governors, once you point out some of their inadequacies, especially through the digital media, there are a few of them who are very responsible, who are also conscious of their name, who try as much as possible to make amends. Some will come out openly to admit their errors. Some will not openly admit, but you will see them make efforts to want to correct some of the things you have pointed out. So, one practical means of doing that is to ensure that the citizens speak out about whatever it they may be experiencing in their various states.
Okay. All right. I'm also told that we do have financial analyst who has joined us in this conversation, Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed. Thank you so much for being here. Let's bring you into this conversation right now. We just mentioned 9 trillion naira, and it seems like governors are beating themselves all over to prove to citizens that they are working. For some other governors, like many have said, it doesn't really matter if they are or they aren't. But Nigeria is currently the 8th largest global growth contributor, according to IMF. Yet we see a sachet economy, as it were, a case where people buy basic goods in tiny fractions. I'm going to bring you in on this note. Why do you think this 9 trillion naira macro gain is failing to reach the micro level? Because there's more money. If you talk to the presidency, they say we're making more money. The governors are getting more money. And then there's the autonomy. Talk about the local government as well. But why is it that we're still at this level, looking impoverished on the inside, but looking beautiful on the outside?
Having me this morning. I think we have to put a clarity, because sometimes the government will tell you that, the governors will tell you that 2 years ago, the money they got is more than what they are getting now. It's less than what they are getting now, because again, they will tell you the interest rate at that time was about between 750 to 1,000. Now you're having an interest at about 1,400. So they will tell you that they are not really, it's just what we will call in investment term paper money. But in terms of the real value, they don't seem to have that real value. That's what they will tell you. Now, why have we not seen the kind of result that we're supposed to see? I think number one, the people also are not holding government accountable in terms of projects, in terms of following budgetary allocation, in terms of following what have been a mark for what, especially now the local government. We are so full of taking care of the federal government, all our emphasis, attentions on the federal government. But we are not looking at the local government, we are not looking at the state government. Like they said, they've actually improved in revenue in terms of from the federation account, and even internal generated revenue. Like a state like Lagos keep telling you about the improvement that they have in terms of internal generated revenue. And again, since the removal of subsidy, we have seen that also improve. But just this morning, you are hearing that the federal government is trying also to remove about 3-point-something trillion from the state government in the area of subsidy payment, also for electricity. So we might come back to that stage again, whereby you are seeing them begin to give excuse that they are not receiving so much because of subsidy payment for electricity. So I think the challenge here is all about governance, like we say in the investment corporate corporate governance in investment. I think we have not seen leadership in terms of management of these resources. Rather, when government see these resources, they use it as an avenue to begin to go for after white elephant project like building of hostels, airport, instead of building of schools, instead of taking care of healthcare. You see them travel abroad to go and study what is happening in China to duplicate it, rather than facing the challenges that people have here. I think it's lack of priority, lack of governance, and again, we seems to be lost in what we are there to achieve, because most of these governors do not have a plan before they became governors. So when they go in there, they are beginning to ask themselves, okay, what can we do now, rather than what have we decided that we will do even before we came to power.
Now, staying with you, Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, how can we make states more viable and make them look inwards? Because if you remember, in the First Republic, when we had the regions, every other region had their strength. You had the granite pyramids in Kano, you had the cocoa in the West. But we have a situation where governors, quite a number of governors, these days are just happy to sit, wait for the end of the month, go cap in hand to collect federal allocation from Abuja and do the barest minimum. A lot of them are more interested in, like the fellow panelists did highlight, in cotton ribbons and flyovers in a state that doesn't even have so much vehicular traffic. So how do we begin to adjust this anomaly? He suggested that the people need to look better and deeper into its recruitment process for leaders, for those, they need to scrutinize those who are coming up for elections. Where do we fix this anomaly? What suggestions do you have? Because we can't go on like this.
Unfortunately, to fix these anomalies, you have to go through the Constitution again, and that's where the challenge has been. Because if you look at resources, no state owns any natural resources. It's on the exclusive right. It belongs to the state governors. To the federal government. So no state can tell you that we see, there's oil brought in our state, we would definitely own it. PIB bill have been passed, but even when you look at that bill, it's still the federal government that control last chunk of whatever happened to the natural resources, whether the mining that are happening are causing insecurity and all that. So we need to go to the Constitution to say, okay, at that time, every region that, like you just pointed out, every region was able to develop their own resources because of the Constitution that was given. But now it's an exclusive right for the federal government to develop those resources. So what you see from the state government is internal generated revenue. And sometimes when you look at their internal generated revenue, is by taxing the already taxed, or overtaxing the most productive sector of their economy, that is going to in the informal sector, collecting levies from market women, collecting levies from dispatch rider, collecting levies from smaller businesses, and shutting down smaller businesses and telling them that infringement in tax collection and that. So because it seems that everything is concentrated on the center. So for do that, we need to look at how we can begin to look at that exclusive right whereby every natural resources in any part of the world belongs to the federal government. We'll begin to see how state government also will have percentage, if not even exclusively. And that we've seen that in the Niger Delta, even if we have not seen commissary result with it in terms of the derivation funds. But then I think we can't use that as a means that, we don't have to do that with other states. We need to look at it critically. I think the president, when he was governor, fight for resource control. I hope this time that he's president, he will be able to say, look, let's allow states begin to control their resources so that they can also be able to generate electricity for their citizens and collect also levies from their citizens pay to the electricity. So government will begin to look at where they can go into business. But even if I have my doubts, when it comes to government being in business, I always say something. It's not in the business of government to be in business, but it's the business of government to create the enabling environment, and they can become shareholders in those business and be able to use that to develop infrastructure to grow those business. So I still stand by that, but I think if we want to have those change of those narrative, even if the people are involved, then the federal government must look at that exclusive right to be the owner of any natural resources that is found in any part of this country.
Still staying with you, Mr. Mukhtar. Our earlier guest shared about how very impressed he is with some states. He talked about how citizens must hold the governors accountable. We can't keep waiting for the president or waiting to, for the federal account and just ensuring that every blame goes to the federal level. But we must also make sure that we hold the state level to account. He made reference to Enugu State, saying that he was impressed by the leadership of the governor there, as well as Anambra State, especially with the recent ending of the sit-at-home order. From your analysis or your perspective, are there any states that you think should be model examples of how, fiscal management or fiscal responsibility has been properly handled in these states? Are there any model states you can share with us?
I think Abia State is one. I think because, again, you look at the governor, and that's why I said he knew what he wanted as a private sector man. You see how that state has developed. He has looked at the up of that state in terms of looking at where this state really have advantage, and he looked at Aba. So he was able to develop that state. That's part of there because it seemed like the engine room of the Southeast economy, trying to provide infrastructure, remove barriers like illegal collection of levies from smaller businesses, begin to create create a buzz around that. Also empowering the citizen also in terms of agriculture and also going to rural development. So I think that's one state that everybody, with the little resources that you have, but if you look at it, you realize that this is a governor that also is partnering with the private sector because it's a private sector driven person. So I think that's one state to note. If you go to the north, you have to also look at Kaduna State with what Ubasani has been able to achieve in terms of security, even if now we are seeing sketches of fight left side, kidnapping within those states, but those are soft target. You could see the way you are beginning to build infrastructure, bringing in the south and the north together. I've been to that state. I've seen a lot of improvement in terms of infrastructure between states, the state governors, and also in terms of relationship, bringing cordial relationship between the southern part and the northern part, and also taking development to every part of the state. I think that's another state to eliminate. And if you look at that state now, their internet generated revenue has drastically improved without overburdening, overtaxing, because the people are beginning to see what they are able to do with them. I think for me, those two states, Enugu State, you've talked about it. Anambra State, yes, we've seen what Governor Soludo has done in terms of the sit-at-home order. Even if we also think that the way he went about it, harassing smaller businesses, was not really the best, but at last he has achieved the result. But in achieving that result, he had to come to the table with the people, with the traders. And I think that's what we should learn. It's not that we are not in dictatorship or we're not in military era whereby you can give an order. You need to sit down with the people. That's what democracy. You need to talk to the people. That's where you're able to achieve results. I think he achieved results when he sat down with the unions and he spoke to them and assured them that security will be provided. So for me, I think those are the states that we can look at and be very proud of what they are doing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed. I'd like Mr. Omipidon to have a final say before we wrap up today's conversation. Let's talk about the local governments. President Tinubu has been pushing for local government autonomy. The Supreme Court did a weigh-in, but we're seeing a lot of foot dragging. Mr. Omipidon, how important is it for us to get local governments, all 774 of them, that are impactful and they react to the yearnings and aspirations of their people and also have true autonomy?
Important to get that because don't forget that both in theory and practice, the local government is the closest, to the people at the grassroots. And if you take Lagos, for instance, if you look at what the local governments are doing in Lagos State, you agree with me that if you have local government autonomy the way it ought to be, the people will enjoy good governance because, it's easy when a local government chairman is not doing well. The citizens can besiege his office and he knows the implication of that. Therefore, he will want to do the best he can to make sure that it delivers dividends of democracy to the people. I agree with you and most Nigerians that the federal government is foot dragging, not only on local government autonomy, but even on state policing. Because at the last count, virtually all the states, including the FCT, had subscribed to state policing. Why it is taking the federal government this long to activate that process baffles me. Again, local government autonomy, you had what Mr. President said last year during one of its interactive sessions with the governors. It means that he knows what is happening because he told them that, look, if they don't do the right thing, he may be forced to wed. The only reason why the president may be foot dragging is because of 2027. Because you need the buy-in and the support of these governors to mobilize and canvass votes for you. But we should not be doing that at the detriment of the Nigerian masses.
All right.
I agree with my colleague. I have not been to Abia since the current governor became governor, but I have read a lot about the happenings in Abia. But I have worked and lived in Kaduna State, and so I can attest to, some of the things he said about Kaduna, and whatever credit we are giving to Obasani in Kaduna State, we must extend similar gesture to Malam Nasir El-Rufai because he laid the foundation. Okay. He attracted investment to the state, although his politics was a bit, awkward for me because the attempt to alienate some certain parts, of the state.
All right,
for me, was not encouraging.
All right.
But the current governor has been able to bring, everybody together, and that is why today, Southern Kaduna, that has always been known as the fortress of the PDP, an area where they formally declare APC enemy of the Christian community, surprisingly, have not embraced the APC.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Omipidara and Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, for your time and insights this morning on Breakfast Central. We do appreciate. Thank you.